So, Eric,
Yes, Bill.
they say we know more about the space surrounding our planet and that little orbiting body that we call the moon than we know about the depths of our oceans.
Indeed.
We've talked about that great super predator, the megalodon, before.
One of your all-time favorites.
We've talked about lake monsters. We've talked about river monsters.
We like monsters.
We love monsters. I love monsters. But one of the last great unknowns is the oceans of our planet. You know, the very depths that we can descend to could kill us in a heartbeat, just being there, let alone the creatures which might roam the ocean with whatever intent they may have.
Out of our grasp.
Whether they be giant turtles, giant snake-like beasts, giant tentacled monstrosities, or holdover creatures from prehistory. I think we're going to talk about some sea monsters.
Let's dive in.
From a child born into this world, we are taught what to believe. Closed-minded we become, fearful to be deceived. Still we desire to know what lies beyond that locked door. The art of the storyteller, conjuring tales of legend and lore. History hidden, lost knowledge, things forgotten and the unknown. These are the things that direct us and will set the tone. Welcome, friends, to another episode of Nightmares on the Lost Highway.
So if you want to go back to one of the original monsters of the ocean, we're going to talk about the Kraken.
Release the Kraken.
Yeah. Well, Kraken.
Kraken.
I think we're going to argue about how to pronounce that, so I'll say Kraken, you say Kraken. And
I like it.
somebody's going to get it right.
We cover it.
The Kraken is described in Scandinavian stories dating back as far as 1180 AD. You know, this is a monster with some longevity in its tail. It was described as a giant squid or octopus-like creature with limbs so large they could be mistaken for islands.
Whoa.
So that's a big monster. Some could even say potentially, origins of the Jormungandr world serpent legend that thrashes in the ocean. Now, for me, I think it's pretty safe to say a creature like the Kraken, there's probably some sort of giant squid. We know giant squids exist.
Yeah, we know that exists. They've washed up on shore.
So, to talk a little bit about the giant squid, it has the largest eyes of any living creature on the planet. Its eyes can be the size of a human head. They're big. It has a sharp parrot-like beak, which was the first piece of evidence that ever suggested the giant squid existed. In 1853, the remains of a giant squid were washed up on the beach in Denmark. Now, as any good fishing community would do, they immediately cut up said remains for bait. But you had this one piece that you couldn't cut up, which was the beak. They kept.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's literally like one of the only bones, cartilage that's in it. So I mean, that's all
they
that
have,
would
they have
exist
the beak,
or be
they
left.
They have what they call a pin, which is sort of a bony-like structure that sort of helps provide a little bit of structure to their body. If I remember correctly about my squid biology, which I dissected one in high school, so that's been a year or two.
It's been a day.
And then some varieties have little claw-like deals in their suction cups on their tentacles.
Gotcha.
So there are certain things that might be left over to identify them. But anyway, these folks in Denmark, they saved the beak, which led to the eventual recognition of the Architeuthis variety of squid in 1857. What we call the giant squid would be Architeuthis dux, or ducks, however you would say it. I would say dux. Now, they are rarely seen. Sightings usually involve dead or dying specimens. The fact of the matter is a giant squid cannot get enough oxygen in the upper levels of the ocean to survive. So if you see one, obviously something's gone wrong for that squid.
Yeah.
Now, sperm whales have been seen with giant sucker scars on them.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, they've done battle with these giant squids. And, if you know much about sperm whales, that one of their primary sources of food is squid.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
might have literally bit off more than they can chew.
Yeah, every now and then they get one that's just a little bit big. Now, a complete specimen was caught by fishermen near New Zealand in 1997. As far as my stories go, New Zealand comes up a lot. The oceans around New Zealand, when they draw the monsters on the map, that's where those monsters are at in my stories.
And you say he caught one?
It was caught by fishermen.
Okay.
but not by a fisherman.
Okay. I'm like, holy crap.
They
The bobber went down. I'm trying to reel it in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they put it on ice and they shipped it to the American Museum of Natural History in New York. This specimen grew up to 25 feet, and the scientists there were like, that's nothing.
He's a baby.
This isn't even large by giant squid standards. They can grow as large as 70 feet.
I was going to say 70, 75 feet.
Now, giant squid are not even known to be the largest type of squid. There's actually bigger versions. So when you talk about the giant squid, then you think, boy, they're bigger than that.
There's always a bigger fish.
Larger species have been known since 1925. A fisherman, singular this time,
Singular.
hauled one up in 2007 near New Zealand.
There's New Zealand again.
I would not get in the ocean in New Zealand. They dubbed this one the colossal squid, and they believe it to be the largest living creature without a backbone. They classify this one, and I'm going to screw this up, Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni. And they say it outweighs all 8 of the giant squid species that we know about.
Big guy.
So this is a monstrous beast. And when you see the depictions of the creature coming out of the ocean, the tentacles coming up and grabbing the ship,
Big galley ship.
That could be a squid.
Yeah,
Let's not argue that.
Those galley ships, by tradition, are at least 100 foot. I mean, those are big ships.
Now, do giant squids attack ships? We can get into that a little bit later.
Well, I'm gonna say at the bottom, looking up, that might resemble a whale.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know that these monsters exist. There's been video footage. It was on Discovery Channel. There was a whole documentary about it. And they even said even then that, like, oh, no, these are small compared to what we know exists. You get down deep, who knows how big they might really get.
Yeah, I mean, what's the name of the big fault that's at the bottom of the ocean?
The Marianas Trench.
Yeah, the Marianas Trench, like where the Meg supposedly is filmed and all this. We're just now in technology getting to a point to make like some unmanned, some manned submarines to be able to go that deep. So yeah, who knows what lies down there?
I believe you were going to tell us about you're going to jump in here every now and then and tell us about a couple of these beasts that might be out there.
Again, as we've shared, Bill and I don't get together. We don't compare notes. So I would just kind of went through and I wanted to focus more on little tidbits of again, monsters we know existed. We have found remnants of them. And I'm going to butcher some of these names. So I'll say that. The first one I wanted to share is a Mosasaurus. Now, imagine, if you will, it's a lizard with fins instead of legs and a flat tail. This goes back to about 145 million years ago.
Would you say it was crocodilian?
Yes. And you might remember in the original Jurassic World movie, aerial view, there was this kind of shadowy creature swimming in the pool.
The one they fed the
great white
like
to? SeaWorld, exactly. And they had this great white shark kind of dangling, and it was kind of an aerial view, and you saw this big shadow of this alligator-looking-esque, and it comes up out of the water and just takes that great white like it's nothing. That is exactly the Mosasaurus that I'm talking about. This thing was gigantic, even larger than the more well-known Megalodon, which I'm going to refer to several times tonight, just in honor of Bill. As a matter of fact, this creature is theorized to have eaten Megalodon and giant squid as its main food agenda. Contrary to the name Saurus, which is dino, it was not a dinosaur at all, but it was simply a reptile with descendants that come into our time frame as nothing more than lizards and snakes. So it was not a dinosaur, it was a reptile. Another one is a Sarcosochus. Again, probably am butchering these.
Now, I'm familiar with that name. I would say Sarcosuchus.
Sarcosuchus?
But I can't be, I'm not trying to correct you. I don't know which one's right.
No. We'll say it both ways and we're covered.
We're covered.
This is another kind of giant crocodile creature with a weird horned hook nose going back 122 million years ago, believed to be an ancestor of the alligator or crocodile. This thing could swim through waters at extremely high speeds and was equally as fast on land. So here we have a hunter, a killer that could hunt equally in water or on the land. What's not to love? A third one I'll share is a Heliquipran. About a 16 to 25 foot long shark.
Is this the one that has the weird, circular saw.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've seen pictures of this.
Imagine this thing is like straight up trippy.
Oh, it's crazy.
An upright single row of lower teeth resembling, I'll describe it as a table saw.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
How does
that work?
How does evolution get you to that point that this is the best you can be?
Right. This saw blade, table saw looking type mouth was deadly, similar to another shark known as a saw blade shark. However, its mouth resembled more of a croc or an alligator, long kind of snoot, if you will, and then in the blade. The Helicopteran still baffles scientists to this day on exactly how it would work or even eat. And its face was more of that of like a traditional shark. But yeah, what mad scientist, twisted genealogist, came up with this kind of stuff? And then you'd already touched on the Kraken or Kraken. So I'll let you take it away from there.
Well, one of my, let's say, favorite original stories that got me interested in these kinds of things is the story of the Zuyu.
We're going to butcher these names.
It's a Japanese name.
Okay.
So the story of the Zuyu Maru carcass. Now, on April 25th, 1977, the Japanese fishing trawler Zuyu Maru dredged up a hulking body about 30 miles off the coast east of Christchurch, New Zealand.
New Zealand.
This place is plagued with monsters.
Here, I just thought it was a great filming for movie backdrops.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. Lord of the Rings and all that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Still, yeah.
Don't go near the water.
Don't get in the water. Now, they dredged this thing up from a depth of about 900 feet. This corpse reportedly weighed about 4,000 pounds.
Wow.
Was about 30 feet long. Obviously, it smelled horrifically. It was just god-awful. It was this rotting corpse they had dredged up from the depths of the ocean. Many aboard considered it to be an ill omen.
Right.
Now, in shape, the body resembled a decomposing plesiosaur. If you're unfamiliar with what that would look like, you can imagine the Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
The dinosaur-like body, long neck, small head, big
Probably
fins.
the second most recognizable dinosaur to the T-Rex.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, they did take pictures of it. There are pictures on the internet if you want to look at it. Be forewarned, it's a decomposing corpse. It's very disgusting to look at. Now, despite the fact they thought they had somehow dredged up an unknown creature, Captain Akira Tanaka was like, nah, chuck that overboard. We're not.
We don't want that
He
thing.
did not want to spoil their catch, which makes sense. That's how they make their living.
That's how they make their living.
You got a corpse. You don't want to do that. Now, some claim the body was that of a decomposing basking shark. Now, I've seen some artist renditions of the steps of decomposition and how maybe this particular body may have looked like that. I do understand that, but there's some doubt about that conclusion. Now, some people have looked into it. The body was whitish and covered with dermal fibers like those found in whales and mammals.
Gotcha.
So already you've got some kind of discrepancy here. There was reddish muscle tissue visible beneath the white fatty tissues. Basking sharks do not have red meat or white fat. So they're not a red,
Strike.
imagine like tuna.
Strike. Yeah.
And even tuna meat, like we see tuna as pink, that is treated. Tuna meat is kind of normally almost a grayish color. And I've had shark. Shark is kind of a pinkish color, but not red, not a vibrant red. Now, some people say it could have been remaining blood in the body, but if you're already to this point of decay, do you have that much blood
left in you? Yeah.
Now, they said the rotting stench was more akin to that of what whales smell like, as opposed to sharks. I guess if you're out at sea, you know the difference.
What a horrible job that you could distinguish those smells.
But I guess if you're
that's what you do.
Yeah, you're sea-going folks. You know the difference between the smell of one and the other.
Hey, come over and stick your head over. What's it smell like?
Now, the head was said to have been a hard skull, not shark-like. Now, if you're familiar with sharks, they're cartilaginous fish.
Right.
Their skeleton is primarily cartilage.
That's why we only find shark teeth.
And cartilage is not as tough as bone. So obviously, if it was a hard, knock on the skull, then it's a little bit different from a shark skull. Now, some researchers say that the cartilage in a shark skull does tend to get thicker and harder than that in the rest of its body. So there were visible nostrils located at the front end of the cranium. If you look at where a shark's nostrils typically are in relation to its head, they are not towards the front of the cranium, but more towards the lower surface, towards the middle. So the nostrils were not in the right place.
This is not sounding like a
shark
shark to me. I'm no expert, but yeah, there's several strikes here against the whole shark debate.
Well, we have some notable experts here. Takeo Shikama, paleontology professor at Yokohama National University, absolutely convinced that this is the remains of a plesiosaur or some sort of aquatic dinosaur. Dr. Fujiro Yasuda from Tokyo University of Marine Science and Technology, he agrees with Shikama. Says that the photos absolutely show the remains of a prehistoric animal. And then there's a Bill Cooper, and I'm not sure what his bona fides are. He noticed that in the pictures, there's a cable being bent by the shoulder bone of this creature. Sharks, being cartilaginous and having a weaker skeleton,
would flex.
Simply would not have the bone would not have the rigidity. Yeah. These are big, heavy metal cables. I mean, this is dredging, tons of fish out of the ocean. Shark bones would not have been able to bend that cable. It would have been the other way around. And then also the corpse lacks a defined dorsal fin, which, if you've ever seen Jaws or any other shark movie,
telltale sign.
That's an indicator. Now, of course, the argument being that the dorsal fin has long since rotted away, but there's no evidence of this creature having a dorsal fin.
Haters gonna hate.
It clearly has 4 paddle-like appendages. It has that sort of longer neck, that body shape common in the plesiosaur profile. Again, I mean, this is one of those stories where you see this picture, you see a rotting dinosaur.
Right.
Could it be the basking shark? I mean, basking sharks are very, very large. I think they grow up to like 30-something feet. They saw one off the coast of New England not that long ago and thought they had a megalodon swimming around. So you know what I mean? Like, it is a big shark, but in this
story, the facts don't seem to add that up.
And I would argue, I mean, you've probably seen the picture at some point.
Yes.
If you're into these kinds of things too.
And it is quite disturbing. I mean, as Bill said, it's a rotting corpse, but
it don't look like a shark.
I don't know what it looks like, but yeah, it tends to look more like a dinosaur to me than it does a shark.
Well, if you got a couple more creatures you want to tell us about.
Well, definitely, I think if we're going to talk about large creatures of the deep, we have to talk about the blue whale. It is the largest mammal on the entire Earth, at least 90 foot in length. Some, speculate, 100, over 100 feet long. Just to put that in perspective, the megalodon average is 55 to 60. So, we're pushing twice that size. Blue whales prefer to swim in pods or groups. There's always safety in numbers. But now endangered due to whaling vessels and illegal harvesting. One of the last documented and living sea monsters, absolutely, that's still out there today, obviously would be this blue whale. As if one would not be terrifying enough to come across. Remember, they travel in packs or pods as whales do. So, yeah, you're out there in this boat. And, even a large-sized vessel, up to 100-foot large whale with friends comes and starts surrounding. That would be pretty petrifying and scary to me. And then one of my favorites I had to talk about is the Godzilla shark.
The what?
The Godzilla shark. Oh, I didn't stutter. You heard me right.
Okay.
I got you.
Unless this is something... I've never heard of a Godzilla shark.
Okay. What a cool name, obviously. It's a brown skin with kind of tiger spots. The name was derived in context when its skeletal remains were first discovered in what is now a desert. At the time, it was one of the largest sharks found. And the gentleman who discovered it was apparently a Godzilla monster fan, so voila.
So this is a prehistoric...
Yes.
Okay, this isn't something still out there. Or maybe.
Megalodons could still be out there, buddy. Calm down. The creature presented 12 rows of sharp teeth, robust jaws with 2 fins that would also propel it quickly through the water. Sadly, to your point of why I've never heard of the Godzilla shark, sadly, the Godzilla shark was later renamed as the Hoffman's dragon shark. While it does have the name dragon, it still doesn't hold that, pull me down the rabbit hole as the Godzilla shark. So you can see why it caught my attention.
Well, the dragon shark is still sad, kind of a
dragon shark.
Badass name.
Hoffman's dragon shark. It's like Pete the Magic Dragon shark. It kind of loses a little luster. Next, of course, the Leviathan, or as it's proper is Leviathan melvillei, I believe.
I read about that just the other day. They called it the dire whale.
Yes, yep.
And if you're familiar with D&D terms, you got your regular monster, and then you got your dire monster.
Yep. A giant, unrivaled sea monster. The name was later dubbed simply Leviathan because simply it was easier to refer to. It's even mentioned in the Bible that, no one could kill it except for God himself. If you want to get biblical, an unequaled killer, not a dinosaur, not a serpent, as the Bible refers to, but rather a species of whale, once again.
Sort of reminiscent of a sperm whale.
Known to be about 50 foot long, about 50 tons in weight. And it is said to have lived in the same time and the waters as Bill's favorite goldfish called the megalodon.
So, who spends more time at sea than those folks in the military, the Navy especially? So I've got a couple of...
Shout out to the Navy.
3 sightings here from military personnel. The first is what is referred to as the UB-85 creature. This is April 30th.
Sounds like a good rock band.
April 30th, 1918. Captain Gunther Kreck and crew captured by the British warship HMS Coreopsis. They were taken on board, and while being questioned, the captain and his crew swore that their ship had been attacked by a monster. They, of course, is a submarine, a U-boat.
I saw this story as well. Very interesting.
The monster had horns, small, deep-set eyes, and masses of monstrous teeth. As they were surfaced, the creature climbed on board, which caused the entire vessel to tilt. So this is a pretty substantial beast.
Wow.
It climbs on board. It attacks their forward gun, biting chunks out of it.
Wow.
Biting chunks out of the gun.
Chunks.
The crew, of course, was forced to abandon ship, and they scuttled the boat, which in nautical terms means they sank it themselves.
Now think of that horror. Abandoned ship. We're going to jump out in the water where this thing's at. Yes.
And they surrendered to British forces. Now, later stories indicate that maybe something else had happened and that Captain Kreck and his crew had sunk the boat for their own reasons, maybe negligence, maybe they had damaged the ship themselves somehow. And it sounded much better to tell the British that they were attacked by a monster than to admit they were just not good sailors.
It is truly horrible to drink and drive, but it is worse to drink and drive a submarine.
Next, we have the U-28 creature. Again, another report from a U-boat. This is a couple years before. This comes directly from the log of Commander Freiherr George G. von Forstner. Just German military titles. I've said this before.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, he was captain of the U-boat U-28. On July 30th, 1915, his ship torpedoed the British steamer Iberian. The ship sank so fast at one point that the bow was almost pointed straight up in the air as it went down. Moments later, it slipped below the waves, and it was underwater for about 25 seconds when there was a violent explosion, which many assume was from the boilers taking on water and exploding.
Right. Pretty typical.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, with the Titanic. This explosion shot debris to a height of about 80 feet out of the water, including a gigantic sea creature of some kind.
Oh, wow.
The German crew were on the conning tower, and they actually saw this beast blasted into the air. It was writhing and struggling to swim among the debris of the Iberian. All agreed that it had to be some sort of aquatic crocodile. It was about 60 feet long, 4 limbs like webbed feet, so paddle-like limbs, a long pointed tail, and a head which tapered to a point. Sounds like something we may have talked about just moments ago.
Yeah.
The animal sank after about 10 or 15 seconds, never to be seen again. And this is all taken from the log of the commander.
This poor endangered species is just swimming down below. It sees like this possible whale or something.
Yeah, I mean,
just
clearly there's something in distress.
Sinking. I'm going to go up and have a quick little bite. Boom, blown 80 foot up in the air. Wow. Talk about a bad day. And
finally, we'll talk about the USS Stein monster. The USS Stein was a Knox-class destroyer escort ship in the Navy, U.S. Navy. In 1978, it encountered something large and unseen in the water after leaving port in California. Suddenly began to experience several technical issues, including a failure of the sonar system. Without the ability to use sonar, this ship was essentially useless. And so the captain, ordered them to return immediately to port in California, where they entered dry dock to repair any damages they had incurred, I should say. While in dry dock, technicians found their no-foul rubber coating on the sonar dome was damaged. Now, when I say no-foul, this stuff is designed to be hard and durable and not easily damaged.
This is a warship.
Yeah. This coating, it's rubber, but it's incredibly hard and durable. That's the point. It's no-foul. Something would have to have unbelievable strength to pierce or cut or tear it in any way. About 8% of the total area was damaged. It doesn't sound like much, but when you consider how durable it's supposed to be, that's still an achievement. Almost all the cuts contain remnants of curved claws. Now, remember I talked about the rims of a squid's suction cups?
Mm-hmm.
They were reminiscent of a squid attack. However, when you took comparisons of these little claws and that they found in the dome, and I say little, I mean, and you compare them against what we know about as squid morphology today, these were much larger than anything that we knew existed at the time. This creature would have had to have been at least 150 feet long.
That's big.
That's big.
That's
now,
big.
We talk about squid varieties, and it turns out that there's a squid that we believe is even larger than that. That's only half the length of what scientists are now calling today the Teuthis rex. So if you're familiar with giant squid naming, Architeuthis is giant squid.
Mm-hmm.
Teuthis rex,
we're dialing it up now.
Yeah, I mean, we're this is like the king of the squids. Yeah, whatever it was that tore into that coating had to be ridiculously strong. So,
all right. Well, I've got some worth mentioning, and we're going to call them weirdos. The first weirdo is referred to as a Tanis aphirus. Imagine, if you would, a lizard-like creature. Now crossbreed that with lovable Nessie and a velociraptor with a python snake neck.
That is weird. And I will say, I thought one of the ones I was going to talk about strange, but that one's even
That's
worse.
why it made it to the weirdo list. Its neck was 2 to 3 times longer than its entire body. It could travel on land or at sea. When it entered the water, it used its very strong lizard-like feet to run across the bottom of the sea, propelling it along.
Now, is this like in the fossil record? Is this a documented thing? Okay, so this isn't folklore.
Everything I am sharing is documented. We have some form of archaeological remnants, knowing that at least it did exist at one time. Its long, outstretched neck literally looks like a snake. If you were in the water, you would think this was just a huge snake because its neck is 2 to 3 times longer than its body, which allowed it to sneak in and around coral and rocks to find its victims, not making any sound because, of course, the neck is just propelled in the water. Its legs and everything are way back there, making it a silent and deadly killer. What on earth of evolution process thought of this? I have no idea. Second of the weirdos that I wanted to share is called an Edestus shark. Another weirdo. Imagine a gray white like shark in the markings and coloration, but with a unique scissor-like mouth, upper and lower, just like a pair of scissors. And all through tonight, Bill and I have been using our hands. I'm sure you guys can appreciate that, trying to simulate this. But a pair of scissors with a sharp row of top teeth and bottom teeth that perfectly met in a single row. This unique design allowed the Edestus to cut its victims in half and bite off pieces cleanly and neatly, unlike the more ravishing shark attacks where it's, jagged edges and shakes. This thing would just come up and just choof and just cut off a limb or half the fish in half.
I mean, as if sharks aren't scary enough.
Yeah, whoa.
Let's arm them with other weapons of some kind.
Yeah, this is like mad scientist stuff. I mean, seriously. Then, of course, probably most familiar of the weirdos is the deep sea anglerfish. Another weirdo, obviously, but straight out of a sci-fi nightmare. This crazy thing is a giant fish that has this bright, glowing, hooked horn thingy kind of dangling from its forehead, not to mention the twisted and crooked rows of teeth that this dangly light would lure you into its mouth, also known appropriately as the devilfish. And also an interesting tidbits, male and females, when they would mate, literally fuse themselves one to another.
Yeah,
creepy!
And I saw, when you see it on TV or you see it in popular culture references, they usually don't look that big. But apparently they are very, very large.
They can get very large.
And when you see the face on those things, it's just like these giant teeth that interlock and just...
And they're like, they look all crooked and angled and jagged, but yeah, they close and just... Woof, that's the last thing you remember seeing. My next weirdo is the lion mane jellyfish. Now you think, okay, some may agree, disagree. Why a jellyfish?
Is this one of those giant jellyfish?
Yes. Is it because it has super scary potent poison? Why, yes, that's one of the things.
It doesn't help.
But not only that. Is it because it's one of the largest, if not the largest, of all jellyfish? Why, yes, as much as 9 feet for the bell or the main part of the body, but also because it has long flowing tentacles. Some can grow as long as 120 feet long off of this 9-foot body, 120 foot, like streaming yarn, pieces of yarn in the ocean. Now, these long dangly tentacles can, like I said, number up into the thousands. Usually they're in clusters of about 100 to 150 of them. And guess what? They shed these as they just kind of swim along their merry way. And they can still sting you or poison you or anything that crosses their path, even as they drift away.
I was going to assume they're probably still dangerous even when they're not attached.
They can worship on the beach. You can walk on them barefoot, fish that swim through them. This is a crazy sea monster that doesn't even have to be near you to get you. So that's why it made my list. And lastly on my weirdo list is the beloved Atlantic wolffish. Another strange, spectacular creature. Imagine, if you will, a plump, blue-skinned version of a giant tadpole. But let us not forget the name wolf that is in there. This thing will confront you or anything that comes near it head on, face to face with super aggression, and then it will blow up its gills and spiked-looking fins, flaring its gnarled-looking teeth at you. It's also known as the devilfish or a wolf eel, due to the longer body that it resembles that of an eel.
Is it a coincidence that a lot of these are called devilfish?
Devilfish, yeah. It will swim backwards just as often as it will swim forwards, very gracefully. It is known to kind of find an underground cave under a bluff rock or whatever, and it'll back right up into that area and just wait for its prey to come out. And then in a millisecond, it just darts out, grabs its prey, and then just pulls it back up to eat another day. These things can grow up to about 6 foot in length and weigh around 50 pounds. So yeah, guess what? That lone fisherman could actually get one of those and possibly land it. Not sure that you'd want to, or what, you maybe just throw your whole reel and rod in. I don't know. To be honest, it's not the most attractive of eel or fish. Somewhat homely looking. I'll just say downright fugly. But yeah, this thing will just back itself away in a little cave and wait for you to swim by and chomp, and it's all over, and then just kind of pull you back. So that's the last of my weirdos list. Bill, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, I have a couple of more folklorish type creatures here that, are they real, are they not, potentially. The first, this is one of my more favorite, potential creatures, is the Lusca.
The Lusca.
It's a creature of Caribbean folklore said to live in the blue holes near Andros, which is an island in the Bahamas. Now, for those of you that don't know, a blue hole is a large marine cavern or sinkhole, and they get their name because, the deep water is blue, and so you have a lot of beachside, that's that lighter color, and then all of a sudden just blue, just deep blue ocean.
And these are believed, at least mostly, to attach somewhere under the ground to the ocean?
A lot of these are, they would attach to the ocean in some capacity, like I said, as part of the island. The Lusca has many descriptions. Sometimes it's described as a giant octopus, a giant cuttlefish, half dragon, half octopus. I think the most common depiction that I ran into was half shark, half octopus.
That's an interesting cross.
Yeah, imagine, if you will, the front half great white shark, and then behind where the gills disappear, then that's like a giant octopus body back there.
That's actually straight out of Dungeons & Dragons. There's a creature in one of the monster manuals, yeah.
Now, some are said to grow to over 75 feet long.
Wow.
That's big. There's no documented species in this region that grows to that size, however. So, could it be a misidentification of existing species? Probably not. Nothing in that area gets that big. The closest thing we would have to any documented sightings, we have a couple. On November 30th, 1896, the St. Augustine, Florida globster. And if you don't know what a globster is,
that's a candy, isn't it? Globsters that you get in a small box.
This is nothing you want to eat.
Not that. Okay.
No, these globsters will occasionally wash up on shore.
Globster. Something.
And they're basically just a big mass of decaying flesh.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to chew that.
Yeah, they just kind of wash up, and sometimes they can be pretty big. Usually, it's the remains of a dead whale, or sometimes a squid or octopus.
Yeah.
in the St. Augustine incident, this body measured 18 feet in length, 7 feet in width, and weighed an estimated 5 tons. An expert at the time estimated that had it been a living creature, it would have had a girth of 25 feet and tentacles as much as 72 feet in length.
Dang.
So that's a big tentacled beast. In January 18th, 2011, the body of a giant octopus washed ashore down in that region. And this seemed to be only a portion of the head and mouth parts of the creature. So it wasn't a complete specimen. Locals estimated that a creature complete of that size would have been 20 to 30 feet, which is, again, larger than anything they have in the region.
I was actually, in some of my little bit of time off, I love to go on YouTube and Discovery Channel. The monster you were talking about, I do remember there was a story in the Bahamas, and there was a film crew that had went to one of these inland caves that you were talking about, the Blue Hole, and they stated that they were there to film, and they just wanted to see the aquatic life that existed in this, and that was to my point, my question, that these are all supposed to kind of connect up to the ocean. They had been there for over a week, various different days going down and scuba diving and filming, until one day nobody came back. And it was a small group, 3 or 4, memory serves me correctly, but they'd kind of developed a relationship with some other locals around, so the locals noticed that, hey, they didn't come to town for a day or 2 days, so it caused a little search party. They went to the site, and they found, typical like little camp. Everything was set up. They had obviously been there, cameras and stuff, not stuff that they would have just left. No sign of any remnants of living or dead, up in there, but they did send some divers down, thinking that obviously they had went down and possibly got sucked out or drowned. They found shredded clothing, scuba diving outfit, and collapsed air tanks.
Wow.
That they pulled out. And I believe it was in one of the scuba tanks, there was actually a claw-like that was reminiscent of a giant squid. And of course, you could speculate, well, something happened, they got pulled out and just beat the heck out of, and it shredded all their outfits. But obviously with that little tooth thing, whatever you want to say, the story kind of blew up that, there was a creature that's living there, and obviously it feasted upon every one of them.
I did see some references to that story. So,
and it was laid out, you believe what you want to believe, but I mean, it seemed pretty presentable. Yeah. Some people argued that was part of the staging to help promote this show, but the point is the show never came out. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, finally, I'm going to talk about the Ningen. Now, this is a creature from Japanese folklore, which is an aquatic humanoid whale-like creature. The videos and stuff that I've seen depict them as sort of slow-moving and docile. So, and again, the videos are...
I'm trying to wrap my mind around a human whale crossbreed kind of thing.
Well, the idea is sort of similar in build to a human in a way. It has a face, like a humanoid type face. The front limbs are usually long and they do have a hand-like structure, but it's like a webbed hand. They would have like a mermaid tail instead of legs to propel itself through the water. They're typically pale white, kind of blubbery skin.
Now, what scale is this? Like humanoid, is this like a small whale, or is this like a whale?
60 to 90 feet in length, potentially.
Okay, so we're going to take, it is humanoid, but giant human crossbreed whale. Okay.
The mouth is large and slit-like, and then the eyes are always described as gaping, whether they be small or large. Said to mainly inhabit the icy waters of the Antarctic.
Well, at least it's not New Zealand.
Yeah, well, not around New Zealand. Yeah, they have enough monsters. Most sightings occur at night. Now, there are some anecdotes about sightings of the creature. One story tells of a ship seeing what they thought was a surface submarine off the coast of Antarctica. And as they approached the submarine to see if it was in distress, it sort of twisted and moved in a very biological manner and dove under the water.
Just doing the back float here.
2005, Google Earth captures what looks like a Ningen off the Namibian coast. Now, some people will say it was a strangely shaped iceberg or a digital remnant of some sort, but it does have a strange look to it.
There were some stories with Google Earth and the Leviathans capturing kind of the shadowy deals under the water.
2010 video by a Japanese research company, just kind of showing local ocean life. So it ends with a large creature with small eyes and a large smiling slit-like mouth, sort of slowly swimming by in the background.
Photobomb.
And then somewhere in the 2010s, there's an unknown user posted underwater footage of a large humanoid sea creature online. So, I mean, I would think something 60 to 90 feet long. Again, we might know about it, but then again, there are varieties of squid bigger than that we've never seen.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, this one becomes a little more folkloric in the fact that there are stories of, well, our favorite men in black clad agents.
Oh, yes.
Showing up to threaten witnesses to not talk about their encounters with the Ningen. So why would it be worth keeping a secret? And we talk about sea monsters. We've talked about a variety of creatures today, both prehistoric and modern, that could account for some of these things. People will try to discount sightings of sea monsters, and again, who knows what's out there in the wild. But I feel like I wouldn't be doing justice if I didn't wrap up a little bit and say, there are things out there that people see they might mistake for a sea monster. The giant oarfish. If you've ever seen one of those, it's very long, very serpentine. I think they get to be 10, 15 or something like that, 10, 15 feet long. Takes a group of men to hold one. They're absolutely harmless. They're just a big, long, snaky-looking fish. Vats of seaweed or kelp that have come dislodged from the ocean floor. People see this thing out there. They don't know what it is.
Then you have the whole gas bubbles and
Gas
stuff
bubbles.
from undersea.
I've seen where people have misidentified otters. I've actually seen a video to prove that otters rolling around in the water, following after one another, could look like a series of humps. But I would absolutely be remiss if I didn't talk about potentially the one thing that's seen more than anything else misidentified as a sea monster. If you're familiar with the surgeon photo of the Loch Ness Monster, you've got the little plesiosaur head coming up and poking out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice little arched neck there.
Well, apparently, when whales get randy, they like to roll over and expose themselves to the air.
That's a French word for frisky.
And apparently a whale's penis will sort of flop over at the end.
Have that little hook.
And it will look just like the surgeon's photo. and this is not something I knew until recently. I'd seen this somewhere. And again, talking about misidentified things at sea and what people might mistake for a sea monster.
Well, if you're going to tell a story to your friend, Bill, do you want to say, I saw a very happy creature swimming upside down, or I saw the Loch Ness Monster?
Well, whether you saw the Loch Ness Monster or you saw whale junk. I mean, you saw something. You saw a monster,
something.
Right?
It was a monster. By any accounts, it was a monster.
So, what lurks out there? What's really out there? How much of this ocean is explored? How much of it isn't? There are constantly stories of submarine guys hearing what they call biologicals on their sonar. When they're and you can't always identify these things. You have the bloop sound out of the Pacific Ocean that sounded very biological, and most people agreed that for a long time, it was probably a living creature of a scale we didn't understand even. They think today it might have been an iceberg, but you have the aggressive Humboldt squid. They live off the coast of Mexico. And I mean, they will grab a diver, and they are aggressive. And they are not as big as a person, but they will absolutely attack you.
Well, and if you're swimming out at ocean, I mean, it doesn't even have to be as large as you to take you under.
No.
I mean, let's face it.
And a shark can grab you in just 12 inches of water, I think.
Yep.
So the things we know of are dangerous enough. The things we don't understand and we don't know, who knows what lurks out there.
And we touched upon it. There's a lot of this that's blown off, and it's like, that doesn't exist. And just in the past few years, 5 years, we are discovering things like never before that we said didn't exist. Not only does it exist, it wasn't extinct when we thought it was. There's still fleshy, nasty, smelly things washing up on the shore. It's still semi-fresh. Well, we're going to wrap this one up, and yet we hope that you have enjoyed this dive into the deep on Nightmares on the Lost Highway. Thanks so much for listening. We'd like to give a shout out to our first paying sponsor, Raven's Loft. That's our family shop here located in Lebanon, Missouri. It's your one-stop gaming, vintage toy, and collectible shop where you can find Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe, comics, vinyl records, role-play gaming, Magic the Gathering, and so much more. We're located here at 223 West Commercial, downtown Lebanon, and also in our second location, also here in Lebanon at the Heartland Antique Mall. We'd like to thank Ravensloft for again supporting Nightmares on the Lost Highway.
I want to take a time to thank the people that helped bring this all together. Alex Tudor, you can almost call him our producer at this point. Sarah Tudor, who also helps with some of the technical stuff. I want to take a moment to extend thanks to Eric for letting us use his space to record in, kind of our makeshift studio.
I, in turn, would like to thank Bill for, one, putting up with me and using this camaraderie to do something we both very much love and enjoy doing, and thank Bill's family for allowing him to spend all the time to work and clean up our recordings and present them in what you hear in the final terms, the final edition, if you will.
And I'd like to thank all of you for continuing to listen. I know we've got some loyal followers out there. We do this as a labor of love, but we're happy that there are people that enjoy it hopefully as much as we do.
Thank you very much.